Part 16. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-san Buletinji. Chapter 157. On May 31, 2012, in the evening, Oklahoma City Chesapeake Energy Arena, the third game of the 2011-2012 Western Conference Finals began here. Before the game started, Angzi started to warm up. At this time, he had already left everything about the Hilton Hotel behind. On the Thunder side, Serge Ibaka, who had been regarded as their savior before, finally made a comeback. At this time, he also appeared on the sidelines to warm up. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith appeared on the sidelines of the commentary. Before the game began, the two began to talk nonsense. They had different views on Serge Ibaka's comeback. Well, Charles, Serge Ibaka really made a comeback, so how much help do you think his comeback will help the Thunder? Kenny Smith first provokes the topic. I don't think it will help much. How much effect can a power forward who averaged only 91 points and 75 rebounds per game in the regular season have on the Thunder? Can he still help Kevin Durant score? Charles Barkley shook head. Obviously he is not optimistic about Thunder. Kenny Smith disagrees. Charles, you forgot one thing. Serge Ibaka is still the block leader in the regular season. He averaged 37 blocks per game. Charles Barkley continued to shake his head. So what? His shots enhanced the Thunder's inside defense at most, but what about the outside? You know, the Spurs are now a bit outside. Their three-pointers and mid-range shots are beyond the Thunder's ability to defend. But you can't deny that Serge Ibaka's comeback can help the Thunder. Yes, I can't deny it, but the 28-point gap is not something Serge Ibaka can pull back. This game is still the home of the Thunder. Charles Barkley stopped talking suddenly, resting his chin in thought, and then said after a few seconds, "This is indeed a problem." At the beginning of the game, the starting lines of the two sides were separated on both sides of the center circle, and Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley began to introduce the starting lineups of both sides. The game has begun. In this game, the Thunder's starting lineup has changed again. Serge Ibaka is back, so their starting lineup has become point guard Russell Westbrook and shooting guard Sabos for Rosa, small forward Kevin Durant, power forward Serge Ibaka and center Kendrick Perkins. The Spurs are still a 1,000-year-old starting lineup, point guard Tony Parker, shooting guard Angzi, small forward Kawhi Leonard, power forward Boris Diaw and center Tim Duncan. Jump ball, Kendrick Perkins and Tim Duncan's jump ball skills are comparable, or use the term rookie pecking to be more accurate. This time Kendrick Perkins jumped a little slower, and Tim Duncan took the opportunity to grab the basketball. Tony Parker took over the basketball and the third game of the Western Conference Finals officially began. The two sides were seated in the half court. An 11 stood at the bottom corner and easily observed the full picture of the half-court offense and defense. He found that after the return of Serge Ibaka, the Thunder's defensive position has indeed undergone some changes, such as Kendrick Perkins is still standing in the penalty area to guard the basket like the first two games, but the difference is that Serge Ibaka will stand not far away to help Kendrick Perkins assist in defense and make up defense. In this way, the two major defensive inside has built an insurmountable penalty zone for the Thunder. However, the Thunder's defensive changes did not cause any trouble for the Spurs. Tony Parker broke through with the ball, and Angzi went around to the free throw line and made a screen for the French sports car. After the reverse run, the defense attracted the defense and Tony rushed to the inside. Parker immediately divided the ball, and Boris Diaw, who was at the top of the arc, received the basketball. The closest Thunder player to him was still at least 3 steps away. So Boris Diaw slowly took aim at the basket, raised his hand and shot the basketball. Boris Diaw made an open three-pointer, made it, and shot it very accurately. The Spurs scored at the beginning of the game, and they began to quickly return to defend against Serge Ibaka's comeback. On the defensive end, Kawhi Leonard will top the power forward position and defend Serge Ibaka, although Ibaka averaged only 9 points per game in the regular season, but he is a very good mid-range shooter and an extremely important part of the Thunder's tactics. Russell Westbrook held the ball and looked for a chance on the perimeter, and then cut directly with the ball without saying a word. After breaking through Tony Parker's defense, he completed a throw in front of Tim Duncan. Successfully score. In the Thunder's offensive round, in addition to Russell Westbrook with the ball, Kevin Durant in the corner was also extremely eye-catching, because throughout the offensive process, Kevin Durant tried to ask Angzi's sticking to the defense, but until Russell Westbrook rushed to the inside to complete the throw, Kevin Durant failed. The confrontation between the two was a bit big, but the referee didn't blow the whistle, but when they came back to the Thunder's home court, the fans on the sidelines made a little boo, and the boo was naturally aimed at Angzi. Spurs offense, Tony Parker and Boris Diaw completed a perfect match on the three-point line. The two attracted the majority of the Thunder's defense. Together with Tim Duncan in the penalty area, they were caught in the middle of the game. A large number of players were blocked, and the two bottom corners were suddenly empty. Angzi quickly rounded the corner, Boris Diaw made a soft pass, Angzi hit the ball and hit a three-pointer, scoring for the first time in the game. In the Thunder's offense, Russell Westbrook still came on his own, rushed into the inside, an emergency stop and jumper shot iron, the rebound was captured by Tim Duncan, the Spurs immediately launched a fast break. Tim Duncan made a long pass, and Tony Parker, who was rushing towards the front court, received the basketball, and then rushed to the basket with the speed of the French sports car, rushing to the basket in 2 steps and 3 steps to make a layup easily. 82 Thunder fell behind at the start, but there is no way. The 3 players present, Du Shao continued to misfire, 28 Master has not yet entered the state, it is naturally very difficult to rely on Westbrook alone to fight the Spurs. Up. On the sidelines, Scott Brooks started pacing back and forth. He was considering whether he should immediately switch to James Harden. In fact, in the regular season, the Thunder could still beat the Spurs 5-5. The big reason was the Thunder at that time. It was the 4 youngsters who were there, and Angzi's defense was not so terrible, that would give the Thunder a chance to win a game, and another game to force the Spurs to the end. I don't know what Scott Brooks is hesitating. He should replace James Harden early, and even he shouldn't let James Harden continue to substitute. You must know that the Thunder have fallen behind 0-2 and this game continues to lose. The Spurs are about to get match points. Kenny Smith continued Charles Barkley's words, "Yes, I fell behind at the beginning, and the Thunder's offense obviously had problems. Russell Westbrook was caught in a solo fight at this time, put on James Harden, maybe the Thunder's offense will survive." The 2 major commentators criticized and dissatisfied Scott Brooks, but Scott Brooks still did not replace James Harden. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 158. After all, the game has just begun, even if it is behind, it will only be a few rounds to catch it back, so Scott Brooks fell silent and did not choose to replace. The game on the court continued, Russell Westbrook brought the ball to the front court, Kevin Durant walked around and asked for the ball. After catching the ball, a 3-threat maneuver faced Angzi, a probing step under his feet, a shake, and then a straight three-pointer. Although in the first 2 games, Kevin Durant's shooting rate under Angzi's defense was dismal, but in this game Kevin Durant still has to take the ball. If the field is not in good condition, he gave up his personal offense. However, Angzi's current personal state is at its peak, especially his defensive consciousness, which is already 99 points full. As soon as Kevin Durant pulled it up, Angzi stuck it on and reached out to block the best shooting angle of the ball. Only a bang was heard. The basketball hit the rim, bounced back, and still didn't make it. Kevin Durant sighed. Seeing that the rebound was snatched by Kawhi Leonard, he didn't care about what he thought, so he quickly chose to return to defense. Kevin Durant didn't score again. He has become a soy sauce role under Angzi's defense, but Scott Brooks can't replace him because at least Kevin Durant has attracted Angzi's attention. This is his only role. The Spurs grabbed the rebound and started the fast break. Tony Parker used his speed advantage and rushed all the way to the front court. After receiving the ball, taking advantage of the Thunder's unsteady foothold, he scored 2 points for a layup, 102. Then, Russell Westbrook rushed inside, attracted the double team and then divided the ball to the outside. Sabos Forosa took the ball and aimed it at the hoop, then raised his hand and shot the basketball with a scream, 105. The Spurs served in the backcourt and rushed to the front court. Tony Parker scored a three-pointer and made the same shot. 135. The Thunder's offense was still Russell Westbrook, who rushed inside and completed a layup in front of Tim Duncan, but the basketball slid around the rim, but still fell off and didn't make it. Angzi rushed in to get the rebound, then lifted the ball over his head, a long pass, and Tony Parker, the French sports car, received the basketball in a high-speed sprint, and completed a layup with a big stride, 155. In 2 or 3 minutes, the Spurs relied on the counter-attack and fast break after a successful defense, and scored consecutively, and soon the score difference came to 10 points. Scott Brooks was in a hurry. If this goes on, won't he enter the rhythm of the previous game, so he can only run to the sidelines, make a timeout gesture, and ask for a long timeout. James, get ready to play, Kevin, next you play more off the ball, we control the rhythm, the success rate in the offense, don't give the Spurs a chance to counter-attack fast break. Scott Brooks quickly made it. Adjust. At this time, his only option is to replace James Harden. After all, the Thunder's bench is not comparable to the Spurs. There is only one James Harden available on the entire bench. Back from the timeout, James Harden took off his training suit, touched his heel twice with his hands, and then stepped onto the court. Scott Brooks replaced James Harden, and they were still 10 points behind, exactly the same as in the previous game. Yes, and the Spurs are more efficient in this game, and their defensive counterattacks are very effective. Scott Brooks crossed his chest and stood on the sidelines to supervise the battle. After James Harden played, the Thunder's offensive pressure was indeed much smaller. In Harden's first offense, Russell Westbrook passed the ball to him. Facing Boris Diaw's defense, James Harden made a breakthrough, rushed to the inside, avoided Tim Duncan's block, got a layup, and caused Tim Duncan's foul by the way. Chesapeake Energy Arena burst into cheers. James Harden stepped to the free throw line, hit an additional penalty, 158. James Harden came on the court, the Thunder's offense seemed to be much smoother, Scott Brooks was relieved. The Spurs' offense finally failed once when the Thunder were in position. Tony Parker's cut and layup was capped by Serge Ibaka, the Thunder took the basketball fast break, and Russell Westbrook rushed to the front court and it was a dunk. In 15-10, after James Harden played, except for Kevin Durant, the other 3 youngsters have already played their own strengths. With these balls, the Thunder quickly reduced the point difference to 5 points. The situation did not follow the script of the previous game. For the Thunder, the role of Serge Ibaka's comeback can already be seen. And then, the Thunder's 3 youngsters established a connection on the offensive end. Russell Westbrook broke through and scored. James Harden made a three-pointer from the outside and the Spurs scored a three-pointer. Angzi's bottom corner three-pointer was accurate going into the basket and returning to the offensive end. James Harden faced Boris Diaw's defense, rushed inside to attract double teams, and then scored the ball to Serge Ibaka on the other side. Ibaka made a shot and made a successful shot. Get the first point of the game. In this way, with the outbreak of the 3 minors, the Thunder was able to bite the score, and Kevin Durant also took advantage of Angzi's several missed defenses to get 2 excellent phone meetings and also scored 5 points. A 3-pointer and a CIC. However, Kevin Durant's current treatment of the ball makes Charles Barkley jokingly call him a role player. In the first quarter until now, Kevin Durant has only gotten 3 shots, only one of them was individual singles, and the other 2 were open shots without the ball. It seems that in the Thunder, Kevin Durant has become a role player who can only take open shots. Charles Barkley's jokes were only teasing Kevin Durant alone, while the entire Thunder relied on the outbursts of the other 3 to bite the score. At the end of the first quarter, the Thunder were 2,628 at home and only 2 points behind the Spurs. You know, before James Harden played, the Thunder were 10 points behind. This means that after James Harden came on the court, the Thunder directly won the Spurs by 8 minutes. The Thunder's tactics are actually superstar tactics. In the first 2 games, when Kevin Durant was locked by Angzi, the superstar tactics could not be used. Although James Harden and Russell Westbrook performed well in the first game, the Thunder still lacked a Serge Ibaka. Without 28 cards, the Thunder's offense and defense were much weaker. In the second game, the Thunder lost 28 points, which was related to Scott Brooks. In the last game, his several adjustments allowed the Thunder to step into the Spurs' trap and eventually lost the game. In this game, the 3 young men showed off together, and the superstar tactics finally succeeded. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 159. In the second quarter, the Spurs began to deploy troops and replace them on the bench. Except for Angzi to remain on the court, everyone else has been replaced: point guard Patrick Mills, shooting guard Manu Ginobili, power forward Dewayne Blair and center Thiago Splitter, and then with Angzi, the 5 played in the second quarter. The Thunder sent a semi-main lineup. Russell Westbrook, who played in the first quarter, came off and rested. Derek Fisher played, plus shooting guard James Harden, small forward Kevin Durant, and power forward Nick Collison and center Nazil Mohammed. At the beginning of the game, the Spurs had a mediocre touch. Manu Ginobili missed 2 consecutive shots. The Thunder tied the score with James Harden's strike and a goal. Fortunately, in the Spurs' third offense, Patrick Mills rushed into the basket and scored 2 points to help the Spurs stabilize the situation. After James Harden broke through for a layup, Manu Ginobili's foul was caused after the hit, and the Thunder once again overtaken the score. In the Spurs' offense, Manu Ginobili took the ball and shot, but his touch was still not good, and the offensive end hit the iron again. And then, the Thunder relied on James Harden's power to score consecutive points. After that, the Thunder replaced Nazr Mohammed with Daikeen Cook, playing a small lineup, and hitting one in the middle of the second quarter. Wave 90's offense was small and suddenly expanded the lead, leading the Spurs by 10 points. Vicky immediately called a timeout. Manu was in poor condition, so he naturally wanted to change. Vicky thought for a while and said, "Danny, you replace Manu, Kahi, you replace Thiago, we play a small lineup, against the Thunder." Now the Thunder's lineup is also a small lineup, so Vich thought for a while and decided to abandon the inside line, relying on the single defense of Angzi, Kahi Leonard and Danny Green to fight the fast break. The Spurs have changed. They have replaced Danny Green and Kahi Leonard in succession. It looks like they are going to play a smaller lineup. The game came back, and the Spurs with a smaller lineup accelerated the attacking rhythm. Patrick Mills cut in with the ball and divided the ball out after attracting a double team. The Thunder quickly made up the defense and Danny Green, who received the ball, scored again. Angzi from the bottom corner hits the ball and shoots, stepping on the line to make a 2-pointer. Then, the Thunder attacked and the Spurs accelerated their defensive changes. James Harden's breakthrough hit Kawhi Leonard and the referee suddenly whistled. Just as the Spurs players thought it was an offensive foul, the referee indicated that it was a defensive foul. All of a sudden, everyone was in an uproar. Kawhi Leonard frowned and spread his hands, saying that he did not understand the meaning of the penalty, while the only veteran on the court, Dun Blair, rushed to the referee and turned towards the referee. Referee appeals. Knowing that there is no use for eggs, but Dun Blair is still aggressive. Until the referee resolutely let James Harden walk to the free throw line, Dun Blair walked away angrily. The Thunder's home court advantage has begun to show off. Indeed, the Thunder can no longer lose in this game. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us to see a Western final where sparks hit the earth. This is something the league doesn't want to see. Charles Barkley has always said dare to say that he is famous. This time, he also couldn't hold back, and pointed the finger at the alliance. James Harden stepped to the free throw line and made 2 free throws, still a 10-point difference. Then, Patrick Mills cut with the ball and was blown offensive foul by the referee. At this time, Dun Blair finally couldn't help it. This chunky insider has always been lovable in the Spurs, but his character also contributed to it. He is an impulsive person. Last time for Kawhi Leonard, Dun Blair could still keep his senses, but this time, Dun Blair couldn't stand it anymore, and put his head on the referee. "You referee. Did you take money from Thunder?" There was a boo, but the boo was directed at the Spurs and at Dun Blair. The referee in this game was Bernie Foy. He stepped back and avoided the aggressive Dun Blair. Then he blew his whistle again to signal Dun Blair to get a technical foul. There was a burst of cheers on the scene. This time Dun Blair became even more annoyed, and he rushed forward to rush up again. An 11 quickly rushed to hold Dun Blair. "Dun, calm down." Angzi pulled Dun Blair back to the Spurs bench with his own strength. Vici didn't hesitate, and replaced him directly, allowing Thiago Splitter to play again, and the Spurs continued. Play a small tactic. Dun Blair sat on the bench angrily. Vici patted him on the shoulder, and then continued to watch the game. James Harden stepped to the free throw line and executed a technical free throw. The Thunder made 2 free throws. The Thunder led by 12 points. Then the Thunder served out of bounds. James Harden took the basketball. If the ball is scored again, the point difference will be even greater. Pulled away. When the Thunder was attacking, the major US broadcasters did not dare to say too much, but in China, CCTV and Sina Sports have less scruples. Ujia directly sprayed 2 consecutive wrong judgments, especially when Dun Blair has already appealed once. The referee still did not converge and continues to make wrong judgments. I think the situation is already obvious. The league is controlling the game. Director Zhang was also very angry. MSU was right, a ball that was clearly an offensive foul. This referee actually blew a defensive foul, and another was a defensive foul, but the referee blew it. Offensive foul, this is very unreasonable. Just a few blows, the Thunder suddenly opened the points difference. The referee's business ability does not seem to be as good as ours. On the Sina Sports side, Fan didn't dare to say too much, but Sukun was blunt. In order to ensure Oklahoma City's victory, the referee has started blowing around. Look at these few balls, it's not good for the Spurs of. On the court, the game was not suspended because of these 2 miscalculations. With the Thunder's offense, James Harden rushed into the interior, and the layup was interrupted by Kawhi Leonard and did not make it. This time the referee is not blowing the whistle. Although Kawhi Leonard still plays defense in the same way, the referee does not dare to blow the Spurs all the time. You can play the Vicky once or twice for the sake of the next game. If you keep playing, you will not give the Spurs a way to survive. In the second quarter of the game, the referees began to have various whistles and misjudgments, most of which were in favor of the Thunder, and the score was slowly opened by the Thunder. At the end of the second quarter, the Thunder led the Spurs by 17 points. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 160. The Spurs' locker room at halftime was finally not as quiet as before. Popovich pulled his throat and screamed hoarse in the center of the court, "We were 17 points behind in the first half. This point difference is a bit big. What does this mean? It means that we are very likely to lose the game. Yes, we are already 2:0 ahead. It doesn't matter if we lose one game. But we can obviously win this game. Let's not talk about the referee. Why did you get 9 points in a row by the Thunder in the middle of the second quarter? What did your defense do? The offense can be attributed to poor state defense," Popovich roared. Directly roared the love Manu Ginobili into it. Manu lowered his head and said nothing, listening to Popovich's continued criticism. Then the referees whistle and whistle, but can this really affect us? Our backwardness is largely due to us. The offense was not done well. Of course there are also problems with the defense. Having said so much, Popovich's tone also eased. Then, in the third and fourth quarters, we must chase points. Now that the league wants to control the game through referees, then we won't let them do what they want. In the second half, the offensive end has a success rate, a fast pace, and only a 17-point difference, and it will be back soon. Yes, we can't let the league do what we want. This game, we must win. Tony Parker stood up at this time and helped Popovich boost morale. In fact, for Anzi, he doesn't need to be inspired. No matter when, Anzi's morale is at its peak, and he is always eager for victory. In the first half, the Spurs played the most stable role in Anzi. The offensive end shot an open three-pointer from time to time. Of course, now the open mid-range shot can also be shot. Then the defensive end defended Kevin Durant and Durant in the first half. He only scored 7 points under Anzi's defense, which was the result of the full first half. In the second half, the game restarted. An 11 still has no rest. At this time, he has become the most important part of the Spurs. With an 11, the Thunder will lose one offensive point. This is still very important. In the third quarter, the Thunder replaced Kevin Durant, letting Russell Westbrook and Serge Ibaka rest for a full quarter. In the second quarter with Quinn Cook, Sabos Frosa, and Kendrick Perkins played in the third quarter, and the Spurs' corresponding lineup is Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Boris Diaw, and Tim Duncan, plus an Anzi. This is an obvious offense. Lineup. Seeing Russell Westbrook playing, Popovich also decisively asked Anzi to defend Westbrook. The third quarter of the game officially began. The Spurs attacked. Manu Ginobili, who was trained by Popovich for an intermission, also began to explode. He and Tony Parker made a cross screen and rushed to the three-pointer with the ball. Inside the line, a jumper shot after an emergency stop and a steady hit with a scream. There are 15 points left. The bad feel of the second quarter was finally driven away by Manu. His first goal was scored. With his right hand holding the shot high, Manu quickly retreated back to the defense, and the Chesapeake Arena let out a boo. In the case of a big lagging behind, defense is very important. Only by defending the opponent's offense can the point difference be quickly reduced. Russell Westbrook held the ball to face Anzi's defense. In the third game of the series, Anzi's single defense ability has been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. The defending Kevin Durant misfired in 3 games and the second game. Russell Westbrook also knows whoever is iron. So when facing Anzi, Russell Westbrook focused his attention for 12 points, dribbling the ball slowly, and then suddenly, without any extra moves, Russell Westbrook directly used speed. Breakthrough from the right side of Anzi. Anzi sticks to Russell Westbrook's body. Westbrook carries Anzi's body and rushes for a few steps. The whole person is almost crooked. but Westbrook is not the kind of person who likes to lie to fouls. An 11's defense is okay, and he didn't pretend to fall or anything. He carried Angzi's defense, made an emergency stop, and then jumped to make a shot. An 11 also jumped up, reaching out to block Russell Westbrook's shooting angle. Westbrook in the air turned around and passed the ball again. It's a pity that the other players in the Thunder at this time basically have no autonomous offensive ability. The catcher Dai Quinn Cook took the ball for a while and dribbled the ball to Russell Westbrook again. Seeing that there was little left in 24 seconds, Wei Xiao could only force it. After a few steps, he forcibly shot a super long two-pointer from one step within the three-point line and slammed the iron. The rebound was protected by the Spurs, and Tony Parker quickly brought the ball to the front court in accordance with Popovich's request. He rushed directly into the interior to speed up the rhythm of the attack. Tony Parker, who rushed into the post, was blocked by Kendrick Perkins and Russell Westbrook. He did not stick the ball, and went straight out. Tim Duncan received the ball for a layup and scored 2 points. There are 13 points left. Then, Russell Westbrook failed to beat Angzi again. The Spurs launched a fast break. Angzi took the lead, received a pass from Tony Parker, and directly shot a chasing three-pointer. With a scream, the basketball gets into the hoop. There are only 10 points left. Angzi jumped up with his hands raised, and Popovich on the sidelines also waved his hand abruptly, spitting out an American national curse. Obviously, Popovich was also very excited by the Spurs' continuous pursuit at the beginning of the third quarter. Chesapeake Energy Arena was booed. Scott Brooks called the timeout in time. The referee blew a whistle and the Thunder asked for a timeout. As soon as the Spurs came up in the third quarter, they hit a 7-0, and the momentum came out. Everyone was excited when they were suspended to leave. The adjustment of the Thunder came quickly. Kevin Durant reappeared, and there was another three-minor combination on the court. Kevin Durant's appearance was intended to liberate Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant, anyway, is to put at least one stable scoring point on the court. The Spurs chased for 7 points at the beginning of the third quarter. The problem was that the Thunder's only stable scoring point was defended by Angzi. As for the Spurs, although Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green's defensive effect is not as good as that of Angzi, they are still useful, so Popovich also made an adjustment. Kawhi, you come on the field, replace Boris, play the power forward position, and defend Russell Westbrook on the defensive end. After the arrangement, the timeout ended and the two sides reappeared. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen-San Buletinji. Chapter 162. After the Thunder replaced Kevin Durant, it became difficult to chase points. Russell Westbrook cut into the post and caused Kawhi Leonard to foul. He made 2 free throws and the point difference came to 12 points. Without Angzi's presence, Russell Westbrook finally eased a bit. Although Kawhi Leonard's defense is also very strong, but at least in the face of Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook's offense can still play. In the Spurs' offense, Manu held the ball and made a cross screen with an 11, and then a European layup directly scored 2 points and the point difference was reduced to 10 points. Then, Kawhi Leonard defended Russell Westbrook's mid-range shot, and the Spurs seized this opportunity and Tim Duncan made a mid-range shot, narrowing the point difference to less than 10 points. On the sidelines, Scott Brooks paced back and forth anxiously. The Spurs showed their terrifying fighting spirit and fighting ability in the third quarter. This momentum of chasing points made Scott Brooks have to look at the last one on the bench that has not yet played. Les James Harden. Now Scott Brooks has also learned to be decisive. He decided to wait until the Spurs are approaching the score again, and he will decisively replace James Harden. However, in the next few minutes, the Thunder's offense was also very tenacious. The Spurs never gave the Spurs a chance to continue to narrow the point difference. Either they did not score on either side, or the Spurs scored the Thunder and the points. Between 8 points and 10 points. In the 7th minute of the third quarter, Russell Westbrook threw off Kawhi Leonard, rushed into the penalty area, faced Tim Duncan's defense, flew up and slammed the basketball into the basket with a bang. In the third quarter, Russell Westbrook has scored 13 points. On the Spurs side, Tony Parker used a pick-and-roll screen, a move, a super long two-point shot, and also hit the same. The point difference turned into 8 points. On the sidelines, Vicky was not so anxious. After all, the 8-point difference in the fourth quarter can also be chased, so he has been standing there quietly, observing every offensive and defensive round of the two sides. It was the Thunder's offense again. Russell Westbrook held the ball. At this critical moment, the Thunder did not dare to let Kevin Durant play. Unless it is a perfect open opportunity, Kevin Durant will definitely not get the ball. Durant's only task now is to hold Anzi. Vicky wasn't in a hurry, but an 11 on the court was a little anxious. The score was too late to shrink. An 11 felt that it would definitely not be good for the Spurs to delay it. So this time, an 11 felt that he should do something. Looking at Kevin Durant from the corner of his eye, Anzi turned sideways and looked at Russell Westbrook, who was holding the ball. Kevin Durant saw Anzi not staring at him, thinking that an opportunity was coming, so he went straight from the bottom corner. Anzi reacted immediately and followed. Kevin Durant circled to the top of the arc and found that Anzi was still there, so he simply prepared to make a pick-and-roll screen for Russell Westbrook at the top of the arc. If Russell Westbrook could attract Anzi's defense attention, that's even better. Seeing Kevin Durant intertwining his hands and preparing to make a pick-and-roll screen for Russell Westbrook, Anzi glanced at Westbrook's basketball, and he felt that an opportunity had come. A sideways, let Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard pass. Anzi directly switched to Russell Westbrook's front. Kevin Durant was happy in his heart, ran a step towards the other side, and then stretched out his hand for the ball, leaving the nightmare existence of Anzi. Kevin Durant felt much more comfortable. Russell Westbrook is also preparing to pass the ball. At this time, passing the ball to Kevin Durant is naturally the best choice. It is a mental illness to play Anzi. However, at the moment he opened his hand to pass the ball, an 11 suddenly jumped out of Russell Westbrook's front. "Be careful," Kevin Durant exclaimed. But it's too late. Anzi's hand cut the basketball flying towards Kevin Durant, and then directly used this force to rush to the court. Steal. Anzi stole Russell Westbrook's pass. He rushed to the front. There was no defensive player within 1 meter of the surrounding area. Hey, with a muffled sound, Anzi made a slam dunk. There are 6 points left. Beep. With a whistle, the Thunder applied for a timeout. With a 6-point difference, Scott Brooks decisively called a timeout. Anzi's steal broke the deadlock. This timeout by Scott Brooks meant to interrupt the Spurs' scoring rhythm. Of course, it's more important to replace James Harden. On the Spurs side, Vicky is not a fool. He is called Zugway by Chinese fans. Vicky knows very well that Scott Brooks' timeout must be replaced by James Harden, so consider a little bit. Vich decided to change with the Thunder. Danny, you come out, replace Tony, and defend James Harden. Danny Green nodded and faced the Thunder's multi-star perimeter lineup. The Spurs' 3 perimeter single defense titans all came in handy. The game restarted, the Thunder really replaced James Harden, and the 4 Miners made the game. The goal of Scott Brooks was obviously to stabilize the situation on the court, and then wait for the opportunity to continue to expand the point difference. For the Thunder, this is they can't lose or can't afford to lose in the game, because once they lose, the big score will become 0-3, and then the gods will not be able to save the Thunder. The Spurs are desperate to win this game. If as usual, Vich will not care about the victory of this game so much. They also ask all the players to work hard in the locker room. The hairdryer mode was also turned on, but this game was different. The referee's partial whistle and faint whistle made Vicky feel that this game should have been the Spurs winning, and even if the referee wants to make trouble, the Spurs must win the game. The game restarted, and the Thunder re-entered the game with confidence, and the four young men made them feel confident. But, soon, reality gave them a blow. James Harden took the ball in his own hands as soon as he came on the court, dribbled outside the three-point line for a while, and then accelerated the breakthrough. After getting rid of Danny Green, James Harden continued to accelerate, as if he had found an opportunity, and took 3 steps. The basket, but Tim Duncan, the guardian of the Spurs penalty area, stood up with a big cap and ended the Thunder's offense. Tim Duncan's big cap, the Spurs strengthened their defense. Their fast break is the rhythm at the beginning of the first quarter. The Spurs' defensive counterattack, Tony Parker's layup, scored. There are 4 points left, to be continued. Super Role Player. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 163. After replacing Danny Green, the Spurs lineup has become 3 single defense defenders on the outside, a defensive gate on the inside, and Manu Ginobili who can surprise you at a critical moment. The Spurs offense is slightly worse in comparison with this lineup, but the defense has improved by several grades. With a 4-point difference, Russell Westbrook was holding the ball and gritted his teeth to attack. At this time, the Thunder found their offense was very difficult, but they had to fight for the victory that must be won. With the defensive pressure given by Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook rushed into the post, jumped with all his strength, and sent the basketball to the basket. Russell Westbrook made a layup. Although it was only in the third quarter, both sides played like a few seconds left in the fourth quarter. Manu Ginobili took a cameo point guard, took the ball to the front court, and signaled Angzi to come out. Angzi understood that this was going to cooperate with him, so he quickly walked around and made a cross-screening cooperation with Manu Ginobili. Manu attracted Kevin Durant's defense, and Manu was caught by Manu in basketball. Handed it to Angzi, Angzi catches the ball. In the absence of other big shots on the court, Angzi's offensive order was raised sharply. Holding the ball to face Russell Westbrook, Angzi took a few steps, rushed to the free throw line, and stepped on the free throw line. CIC. Huh. Perfect hit. Angzi CIC. It's in. The point difference is still 4 points. There are still 1 minute and 58 seconds left in the third quarter. An 11 slapped Manu in excitement, and at the moment of chasing points, an 11 also began to show his recent progress on the offensive end. Russell Westbrook slowly brought the ball to the front court. He controlled the time. Russell Westbrook only started when he slowly walked from 158 to 143. Kendrick Perkins pulled out and gave Russell Westbrook a pick and roll. With the help of this screen, Russell Westbrook threw off Manu Ginobili and rushed into the three-point line. Hit the big with the small. Facing Tim Duncan's change of defense, Russell Westbrook did not hesitate and rushed in without stopping. The desperate Russell Westbrook stirred the Spurs' penalty area into chaos. After a change of direction, he once again relied on Tim Duncan, who had passed his speed to change defense, and rushed to the penalty area as a split button. The basket made a clang and Russell Westbrook roared to the ground. Fists waving. The score difference came to 6 points again, and the game time was 1 minute and 35 seconds left. This round, the Thunder almost played 24 seconds. On the sidelines, Veach covered his mouth and shouted, "Speed up the rhythm. PP speed up." Hearing this, Manu Ginobili began to speed up the dribble, and after rushing to the front court, without any pause, while the Thunder had not yet established a foothold, he cut directly with the ball. Russell Westbrook hurriedly retreated, and Kevin Durant on the other side had to run to cover the defense. At this time, Manu passed the ball. After Kevin Durant assisted in the defense, Angzi ran in the opposite direction and ran to the weak corner. At this time, within 2 meters of Angzi, there was no Thunder player, and Manu's pass soon arrived. After receiving the ball, Angzi adjusted his position calmly, standing outside the corner three-point line, and shooting a three-pointer. James Harden, the nearest to Angzi, hurriedly rushed over, but it was too late. The basketball traversed a perfect arc and got into the rim again. It's Angzi again. At this critical moment, Angzi scored again and again. This scores 3 points, which directly reduces the difference to 3 points. On the sidelines, Scott Brooks couldn't help but yelled, "Defense! Pay attention to defense." Then he turned around, and whispered a foul language. Angzi's three-pointer further narrowed the difference. Thunder, the situation has become more and more critical. Now, the most important point is that the presence of the 4 minors can't prevent the Spurs from narrowing the point difference, and looking at the Spurs' current lineup, it is completely a defensive lineup, and it is not all the main force, but the Thunder is all. The main force played. After the third quarter, the Thunder's 4 young masters were exhausted, so what else did they use to play the fourth quarter? Not to mention that the Spurs can also form a semi-main lineup in the fourth quarter. The Spurs' attack took only 15 seconds, with 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the third quarter. James Harden held the ball. Facing Danny Green's defense, he also chose to cut in very neatly. James Harden's dribble is very interesting, with a sense of rhythm different from ordinary people. He rushes to the inside, but the Spurs' defense is all in place. Tim Duncan and Danny Green double-teamed. James Harden lost the ball after several struggles. Boom! Chesapeake Energy Arena gave a huge exclamation. Danny Green, who was quick-eyed, grabbed the ball in his hand and stole it. James Harden is facing a double team. Should he choose to pass? Oh no! It dropped. Charles Barkley yelled. Who got the ball? It's Danny Green. It's the Spurs. The Spurs fast break. The moment Danny Green grabbed the basketball, an 11 began to run forward. He was far ahead. When Danny Green rushed to the center line, an 11 was almost at the basket. Danny Green did not hesitate, threw the basketball to the hoop high, and then shouted, "N. Dunk." After all, it was also a teammate who had cooperated for a season. Angzi took off without hesitation. With Angzi's physical fitness, he jumped very high. He saw the basketball thrown by Danny Green high, and Angzi held the basketball with his long arms. The body fell rapidly. A loud noise. Wow! Beautiful air pick. The perfect cooperation between China and Danny Green, Kenny Smith exclaimed excitedly, but his voice was soon overshadowed by the huge boos of the Chesapeake Energy Arena. The Spurs' defensive counterattack, Angzi's empty dunk ended the offense. With only 1 point left, Charles Barkley screamed hoarse in his boos. In the second half, the Spurs played an astonishing defense. In this strong defense, the Thunder were lost. For the entire third quarter, they had lost 16 points. The 17-point difference in the first half was about to be exhausted. Amidst boos, the Thunder reorganized the offense, but Russell Westbrook's breakthrough jumper hit Kawhi Leonard's defense again. The Spurs grabbed the rebound, and again a wave of fast break. Manu Ginobili's fast break shot succeeded. The whistle sounded at the end of the third quarter. The Spurs overtook the score. Throughout the third quarter, the Spurs chased all the 17 points they had fallen behind in the first half and surpassed them by 1 point. The situation of the game was reversed, and the victory that the Thunder had almost obtained, then slowly flowed away from their hands. In the fourth quarter, although the 4 young men were exhausted, in order to win the game, Scott Brooks had to let them continue to persist, but the result of this persistence was not good. Vicky continued to let Angzi play and limit the 4 young ones. One person, and then used the French combination of Tony Parker and Boris Dior, who didn't make much appearance in the third quarter, plus Thiago Split and Gary Neal, to play a variety of small coordinated offenses. After several successful defenses, the Spurs played a few waves, and the point difference was widened step by the Spurs to be continued. Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-San Buletinji. Chapter 164. Read for, Male Sign, free reading of wonderful novels without pop-ups. In the end, the game ended, the Spurs 10,796, another away win, a total score of 30 leads. When the buzzer of the final timer rang, the entire Chesapeake Energy Arena was filled with boos. The boos were not only aimed at the Spurs who took the victory from here, but also the unsatisfied Thunder. After losing 2 games in a row, the Thunder hoped to return to the home court to pull back 2 games and tie the total score. As a result, they returned to the first game at home and lost again. This time the Thunder lost 11 points. At first glance, they didn't lose too much, but the game process made the Thunder players feel deeply complicated. In the first half, they also led the Spurs by 17 points, but the sudden change in the second half made them feel better. Zi lost all his advantages. In this game, the loss in the second half alone was 28 points. A complicated number. In the last game, the Thunder lost so many games. Angzi walked slowly towards the locker room. In this game, Angzi played for 46 minutes. It can be said that the whole game was played. In the whole game, Angzi made 7 of 14 shots and scored 20 points, plus 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 assists. Steal 2 blocks and perform all around. In this game, Kevin Durant was not as pitted as the first 2 games. He controlled the number of his shots. He took 13 shots in the game, hit 6 goals, and scored 15 points. This performance was in line with the starting requirements. Angzi staggered into the locker room, where a group of reporters had been waiting. Angzi was still very tired after playing the whole audience. A few reporters from China rushed up and piled the microphones in front of Angzi. Angzi raised his hand. "It's all right, let's ask one by one." The team's trainer, Will Swining, squeezed in. Several reporters stopped first and gave Swining a place. Wells Wenning glanced at the crowds of reporters around, and told an 11, "An, you played a whole game today. Don't get too tired. End the interview early and go back to rest." Angzi nodded, indicating that he understood. Wells Wenning put an ice pack on Angzi's waist, and then put a bucket of ice cubes at Angzi's feet to let Angzi recover a little muscle, and then left. Soaking his right leg in the ice water, Angzi motioned to reporters to ask questions quickly. Hyopuani spoke first. "Angzi, you played 46 minutes today, but you had a rest for less than 2 minutes at the end of the game. Do you feel tired?" Angzi rolled his eyes. He and Annie are relatively familiar, and said jokingly, "Tired, too tired, or today's interview." Several domestic reporters smiled, but they didn't mean to give way. "So Angzi, what do you think of your performance so far in the series?" An 11 stopped joking. He answered the question very seriously. "It should be said that the game exceeded my expectations. After all, the defensive end has been very successful, and the offensive end has also improved a lot. I hope I can continue this state." Angzi was conducting post-match interviews in her locker room. In the Thunder's locker room, a group of reporters surrounded several main players and asked some questions. However, the Thunder players were not very emotional, and several were interviewed. The players speak very quietly and don't dare to speak loudly at all. "Kevin, your shooting percentage has rebounded a lot in this game. Have you got rid of Angzi's defense?" Kevin Durant lowered his head. "I still have a lot of bad things. This series has taught me very profound lessons." "So Kevin, what do you think of Angzi's defense?" "Very strong." Kevin Durant obviously didn't want to say more. 0-3 behind, do you think you still have a chance? Kevin Durant was silent for a while, then said, "There will always be opportunities. There will always be opportunities. A few reporters almost couldn't help but sneered. They are all behind 0-3. Still have a chance? At most, I would like to mention the refusal to sweep, the promotion and so on. After 0-3, there is no precedent in history. Yes, this group of media reporters already think that the Thunder has lost their chance to qualify for the finals. For all the Thunder's coaches and players, it is a bit of a joke to forcefully say that they still have a chance at this time. Anzi followed the bus back to the hotel. At this time, he suddenly remembered that the floor he lived on was the floor where people died. I took the elevator upstairs and said goodbye to the teammates who lived on the lower floors. When the elevator reached the 10th floor, there was no one in the elevator. Suddenly, Anzi felt that the atmosphere was a bit wrong, always feeling gloomy. As soon as the elevator doors opened, the quiet 10th floor was unfolded in front of Anzi. The long corridor was covered with thick black and yellow patterned carpets, and the walls were also wall coverings with black and yellow as the main color, illuminated by dim lights. On the carpets and wall coverings, everything is so weird in the quiet night. With both feet on the carpet, there was no sound of footsteps on the soft carpet, but Anzi felt that walking alone in such a long, quiet corridor was always a little scary. Walking quickly to the door of her room, Anzi finally calmed her mood. I'm an atheist, what a ghost, it's not that scary. Anzi comforted herself by speaking, and then entered the room. There was nothing unusual in the room. It was quiet and warm. Of course, it was summer. Anzi didn't like the warmth. He turned on the air conditioner at the door, took off his clothes and went into the bathroom to take a shower. After taking a shower, Anzi watched the TV for a while, and he found that after entering the room, it was not so scary. What kind of ghosts and weird things were scared by himself? Anzi laughed, then took out his mobile phone and gave it to Abby. Made a call. Abby also followed to Oklahoma City. For these two games, she was going to serve as a sideline reporter to provide on-site information and conditions for several commentators on Fox Sports. However, she did not stay at the Hilton Hotel, but at the Hilton Hotel. The Brickton Hotel is not far from the Hilton Hotel. And? Are you asleep? Abby's kingly voice came from the other end of the phone. Not yet. What? Are you really haunted? Anzi naturally told Abby about his stay on the 10th floor of the Hilton Hotel. Abby was worried about this for a while. Anzi pretended to be really haunted, and replied, it seems, a little bit. The play was full, and Abby believed, and quickly said, then you don't live there, come to me. According to Abby's words, Anzi is really changed. In this playoffs, in order to better display his state and strength, Anzi has implemented abstinence measures on himself. The playoffs have not been played until now. It's meaty. But after thinking about the game the day after tomorrow, Anzi still held back. No, Abby, I lied to you, where's the ghost in this world? I'm an atheist, Anzi laughed. Abby on the other end of the phone said angrily in Anzi, and then hung up. After hanging up the phone, Anzi fell asleep deeply, thinking, what the is there in this Nima, the flow scares people to death. To be continued. Super Role Player 5252464, Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 165. Mail sign, free reading of wonderful novels without pop-ups. After 7 o'clock in the morning, Anzi didn't get up unexpectedly. It wasn't until almost 8 o'clock that Manu Ginobili came up to wake an 11, and an 11 looked confused. While washing, Anzi endured the painful burst of cerebellum. And, I slept soundly, it seems that this hotel is not haunted. Manu looked at Anzi's sleeping room as he waited for Anzi, and it didn't seem so scary. Anzi replied vaguely. It was true that no supernatural incident happened last night, but Anzi felt that she was not sleeping well. Although I haven't woken up all night, I have a headache like not sleeping, and I always feel that I had a nightmare last night, but I can't remember how I came together in the morning. At 8 o'clock, the Spurs started on time and headed to the training hall they rented in Oklahoma City. On the bus, Angzi entered the system once, and then he was stunned to discover that the consciousness attributes of the previous 95 and the other 99 had actually changed. The offensive consciousness remained unchanged at 95, but the defensive consciousness dropped from 99 to 70. This what the is Nima? Of course Angzi knows that this must be the effect of not sleeping well last night, but the effect is too bad. Angzi can only feel the pain of the egg. Fortunately, the offensive consciousness has not fallen. Otherwise, Angzi will definitely explode in the next game. Up. Moreover, I looked at the defensive consciousness and thought about it. It is estimated that the value of 70 can also keep Angzi at an average level. After all, it has not fallen to the bottom. In the next game, it should be impossible to continue the defense of the first 3 games. However, it can be expected to play the standard of the regular season. The Spurs spent 2 days in Oklahoma City and finally waited until the start of the 4th game. In the past 2 days, the Spurs have been training in the training hall they rented. They returned to the Hilton Hotel at night. Angzi also paid for himself to change the room. Although he slept well in the room on the 10th floor the night before, Angzi he always felt that something was wrong, so he simply paid for it himself, trying to feel relieved. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the 4th game between the Heat and the Celtics is over. In their home court, the Celtics actually won another game and tied the total score to 22, the Heat's playoffs. The road went quite unsuccessfully. In the 4th game between the Spurs and the Thunder, when the Thunder general manager Sam Presti was interviewed before the game, he did not speak as hard-headed as his players, but said in a low-key manner that the goal of the Thunder in this game was victory, and other things were not considered. And Scott Brooks, who has been silent, after Sam Presti's low-key post, also said that the goal of the Thunder in this game is to refuse to sweep. This low-key announcement by the Thunder did not arouse other people's objections, because many people believed that after losing 3 games in a row in the Western Conference Finals, the Thunder should always win the next game. The betting company's odds also speak for themselves. They lowered it. The odds for the Thunder to win indicate that they are more optimistic about the Thunder's victory in this game. Of course, almost everyone thinks that the victory in this series must be the Spurs. At the beginning of the game, the situation really developed as many thoughts. The Thunder's 4 youngsters showed off together, and they actually had a small lead. And most importantly, Kevin Durant actually broke away from Angzi's defense, and so did the first quarter. Scored a lot of goals. In the first quarter of the game, the 2 teams were more like a competition of state. Obviously, the state of the 2 teams was similar. After 2 days of rest, they could recover even if they were not in good shape. The Thunder is still slightly ahead, and the power of the 4 young players is indeed very strong. In the second quarter, the Spurs scored 7 points in a row at the beginning of the game. Angzi's 3-pointer, Manu Ginobili's European step and Tim Duncan's layup all overtook the point difference. However, the Thunder's performance is also very tenacious. Russell Westbrook has all the power and has been biting the difference between the 2 teams. The score of the 2 teams has alternately increased. Finally, the 4th game seems to let people see a truly wonderful Western Conference Finals. After halftime, the Spurs entered the second half behind by 3 points. Compared with the seriousness of the Thunder, the Spurs players performed very easily. Originally, Gregvich and his disciples did not expect to sweep the Thunder in 4 games. Anyway, try your best to play this game. If you can win, it's better. If you can't win, you won't be able to win back home. As a result, in the third quarter, the easygoing Spurs substitute broke out. As soon as the game opened, Danny Green made an open 3-pointer, which sounded the clarion call for the Spurs offense. Then, Kevin Durant returned a three-pointer, and the Spurs did not show any weakness. They continued with the three-pointer. Patrick Mills's chasing three-pointer made a magical hit. Then, Kevin Durant wanted to continue, but this time he was slapped by Angzi. Back on the offensive end, Angzi also scored a three-pointer, facing Kevin Durant's defense and hitting directly. In this way, in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter, the Spurs had 3 points of rain. In just a few minutes, the points difference was suddenly opened. Chesapeake Energy Arena has never stopped booing since then, and the Spurs got more and more excited during the booing. In the third quarter, the Spurs won the Thunder by 20 points. Charles Barkley began to shake his head constantly. The Thunder are about to say goodbye to the playoffs. The Spurs' outbreak in the second half has already widened the point difference. And Kenny Smith announced the results of the end of the third quarter on the side. The third quarter is over, and the Spurs entered the fourth quarter with a 17-point lead with a wave of 3-point rain in the third quarter. In the press stand, reporters from major media have already started to write articles. Reporters with laptops started to write articles directly, while those without laptops started to write articles and communicated with the journalists around them. As soon as the fourth quarter started, Angzi made a three-pointer, and the score difference officially came to 20 points. Then, the Thunder couldn't stop the rout. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant's shots kept hitting iron, and the Spurs easily accepted the victory of the game. In the end, the game ended, the Spurs 127,100 away, a 27-point victory over the Thunder, 40 sweeps, and advanced to the finals. Let's congratulate the Spurs, after 4 years, returned to the finals. With the beep of the timer, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith began to announce the end of the game. Congratulations to the Spurs, the winner of the series. Congratulations to the Spurs, congratulations to Gregvich, congratulations to GDP. With a sigh of congratulations, the game was officially over. The Thunder fans finally stopped booing and left the arena one after another. Only a few fans were left in the arena to watch the Western Conference Championship Awards ceremony. Most of them were Chinese. The Spurs players have temporarily returned to the locker room. They want to change into the Western Conference Championship celebration t-shirts. To be continued. Super Role Player, 525-2464, Super Role Player. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 166. Soon, the Chesapeake Energy Arena was occupied by a group of Spurs wearing black patterns on a white background, and they stood in the middle of the court. The chubby Western Championship trophy was also placed in the center of the field. Amidst cheers, the host of the awards ceremony brought David Robinson, Admiral, the leader of the Spurs, to the center of the court. The two were separated on both sides of the trophy. Although there were not many fans in the arena, at this time, the remaining neutral fans and Spurs fans still made a lot of cheers for the upcoming awards ceremony. Now, everyone should know that the Spurs have a chance to compete for the championship this season. The host's opening remarks were interrupted by a burst of cheers. He stopped and continued, "Today, there is a Spurs." The celebrity came to the scene and presented the 2011-2012 Western Conference Championship trophy to the San Antonio Spurs. He is the Admiral David Robinson. David Robinson stood up and waved to the fans on the sidelines, and there was another cheer. David Robinson stepped forward, and in the introduction of the host, he picked up the chubby championship trophy. Behind him, Tim Duncan walked over. As the Spurs captain, he took the trophy. With cheers and music celebrating the championship, Tim Duncan raised the trophy. He and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker were cuddling their shoulders, and a group of Spurs players were jumping around. After the award ceremony, Tim Duncan, as the captain, gave a speech. To be honest, This is the first time Anxi has seen Tim Duncan say so much. Today, we defeated the Thunder and won the Western Conference Championship. This is a great result, but we must know that a Western Conference Championship is not the end. Next, we still have to play in the finals, our ultimate goal. It's the championship. The award ceremony for the Western Conference champions is over. For the Spurs, they have a long break. After all, in the Eastern Conference, the Heat only hit 2-2 with the Celtics. Unlike the Spurs, which easily solved the Thunder 4-0, the Celtics and the Heat fought extremely badly. When the Spurs drew back to San Antonio, the Celtics went to Miami to prepare for the fifth game between the two sides. For the Spurs, even if the Celtics and Heat win 2 consecutive victories, the start of the finals will have to wait until 4 or 5 days later. With such a long break, the Spurs have to plan again. On June 5, 2012, the Celtics began their fifth game against the Heat. Before the start of this game, the league announced the last regular season award, the ownership of the best defensive team. Anxi, who has returned to San Antonio, was surprised to find that he was selected to the second team of the all-defensive team. The first team selected for the best defensive team are Tony Allen of the Grizzlies, Dwight Howard of the Magic, Serge Ibaka of the Thunder, LeBron James of the Heat and Chris Paul of the Clippers. Among them, Serge Ibaka is the league's block leader, and Chris Paul is the league's steal king. The second team of the all-defensive team was selected by the Spurs Anxi, the Lakers Kobe Bryant, the Celtics Lagerondo, the Knicks Tyson Chandler and the Celtics Kevin Garnett. Especially, it is worth mentioning that, as the best defensive player of the year, Tyson Chandler, it was a bit embarrassing that he did not make it into the best defensive team. And Anxi's selection to the second team of the all-defensive team was a bit of a surprise for him, but the outside world has long argued that Anxi's performance this season can be selected as the all-defensive team, especially after the start of the playoffs. The voice grew louder and louder, and in the end, Anxi was indeed selected for the second team of the best defensive team. Even so, some people think that Anxi should even be selected for the first team of the best defensive team, not the second team. Many experts have listed statistics to prove this. In the regular season, Anxi's average data was 9.8 points, 2.3 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 1.0 steals and 1.5 blocks. Compared with Tony Allen in the first game, this data is not bad at all. In the regular season, Tony Allen's average data is 9.8 points, 4.0 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.8 steals and 0.6 blocks. In terms of defensive data, rebounds and steals are more than Anxi, but Anxi's blocks are higher than Tony Allen, and the defensive ratio is more important in steals and blocks. Anxi all reached more than 1. Some experts also listed a set of statistics. Players who played against Anxi had an average shooting percentage of only 36.8%, while Tony Allen's hit rate was 37.6%, which is slightly worse than Anxi. Therefore, some experts believe that combined with Anxi lagging behind in rebounds and steals, Anxi should be at least as good as Tony Allen. Some netizens took out the data of the Spurs vs Thunder for a series of games. The Spurs played the Thunder. Anxi defended Kevin Durant, the regular season scoring leader in 4 games. In 4 games, Kevin Durant opened the game. 9 of 27 shots, 5 of 15 shots in the second game, 6 of 13 shots in the third game, 13 of 30 shots in the fourth game, 4 games, a total of 85 shots, 33 goals, only 38% hit rate. 4 games in the game, Kevin Durant averaged only 19.8 points, a regular season scoring leader, averaging less than 20 points per game, which shows the horror of Anxi's defense. But such a voice soon disappeared in the stunned Celtics away victory over the Heat. In Miami, the Celtics rely on Kevin Garnett's 26 points, 11 rebounds and 2 blocks, Paul Pierce's 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and Lagerondo's 7 points, 6 rebounds and 13 blocks. Assists 4 steals, 94-90, defeated the Heat in an away game. Although LeBron James scored 30 points and 13 rebounds, Dwayne Wade scored 27 points and 6 rebounds, but helplessly, the gap of 4 points made them lose the Battle of Tianwangshan. The Celtics actually won the Heat away and won the Battle of Tianwangshan. Who would have thought of this before the game? After winning this game, the Celtics are already leading the Heat 3-2, and the next game is the Celtics' home court, so many people began to disbelieve the scene in front of them. The Heat lost the Tianwangshan War, then it is very likely that the Spurs will join the finals. Will it be the Celtics? The Big Three teamed up for 2 years and easily reached the finals in the first year, but lost to the Mavericks, who broke out in their twilight years. Is it still going to be lost to the Celtics this year, even in the finals? Can't it? Hairband Jean. Hairband Jean. You should take off your hairband. The Heat's stubborn inside line really has to be resolved. In the late years of this game, Kevin Garnett will show off, and the weak Heat inside line can't resist it. After the game, various arguments appeared in major forums in the United States and China. It has to be said that after the Big Three teamed up, the Heat gained a large number of fans. At this time, facing their beloved team is about to lose again. And still lose in a way far below expectations. These fans can no longer bear it. If you can't win a championship this season, the Big Three will be close to collapse, right? In fact, the Big Three are far less powerful than imagined. 1 + 1 + 1 is less than 3. Maybe it's time to trade. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to the starting point, to vote, and your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile phone users, please go to read. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 167. On June 7, 2012, the Heat challenged the Celtics away. The 2-3 behind made the Heat have no retreat. In any case, they must win the game. So amidst the desperate and hopeful voices of the Heat fans outside, the 6th game of the Eastern Conference Finals began. At the beginning of the first quarter, Dwayne Wade's 4 missed shots made the Heat fans feel the victory is far away, but soon, LeBron James took over the game and beat Paul Pierce to score consecutively. In the first quarter, 7 shots were taken. LeBron James, who hit 6 goals, scored 14 points. Mario Chamos and Sean Battier's three-pointers also gave them hope. In the first quarter, the Heat took a 10-point lead with LeBron James' burst. Immediately afterwards, in the second quarter, LeBron James continued to wreak havoc on the Celtics basket, making another 6 of 7 shots. LeBron James scored 16 points in the second quarter and Dwayne Wade the State recovered and scored 6 points on 1 of 2 shots. In the second quarter, the Heat extended their 3-point lead. At halftime, the Heat led the Celtics by 13 points. Heat fans saw the hope of winning, and Jean Wang's mighty comments slid across the screen one by one. In the third quarter, LeBron James made 5 of 8 shots and scored 11 points, but Dwayne Wade only made 1 of 4 shots. In the third quarter, the Heat and the Celtics tied. The game entered the fourth quarter of the decisive victory. Wade began to stand up and take over the game. The Big Three teamed up and watched Wade in adversity. In the fourth quarter, LeBron James lost the bravery of the first 3 quarters. He made 4 shots, hit 2 goals and scored 4 points, but Dwayne Wade made 4 of 7 shots in the final quarter, 8 points and 5 rebounds, and secured victory for the Heat in one fell swoop. In the 6th game of the Eastern Finals, the desperate Heat fought for 4 quarters, 98-79, and defeated the Celtics. Dragged the series into the tiebreaker. The whole game is over. LeBron James had 45 points, 15 rebounds and 5 assists, Dwayne Wade had 17 points, 8 rebounds and 4 assists. The full strength of James in the G6 game and adversity way helped the Heat to win this victory without a retreat. The outbreak of Yanwei gave the Heat fans hope. In the tiebreaker, the Heat became the darling of public opinion. After the G6 reversal of the desperate situation, almost everyone believed that the Heat will advance to the finals. The Eastern Conference Finals tiebreaker began in the evening. The Spurs players ended a day of training and stayed in the locker room. They watched quietly the game that decided their opponents in the finals. In the first quarter, LeBron James was guarded by the Celtics, only shot 3 times, hit 1 goal, but with 6 free throws to get 8 points. The Celtics are in full bloom. The first quarter, the Celtics 27-23, leading by 4 points. In the second quarter, LeBron James still had only 2 shots, but all of them hit 2 and scored 6 points. The Heat lost another 3 points in the second quarter. At halftime, the Heat fell behind by 7 points and the situation took a turn for the worse. On the sidelines, some Heat fans who couldn't stand the tension even left the field. The 7-point lag was not big, but it was not too small. In the third quarter, LeBron James still did not break out, and the data of 2 of 7 shots even made people feel that the Heat had already explained the game. But fortunately, the Celtics' state is even worse. Paul Pierce actually made 1 of 5 shots. At the end of the 3 quarters, the Heat actually evened the score. The third quarter did not seize the opportunity to continue to expand the points difference, something the Celtics regret is about to come. In the fourth quarter, LBJ changed from Jean's usual style at the end of the quarter. In the fourth quarter, he made 4 of 9 shots. His resolute shots allowed him to score 11 points, plus Dwayne Wade's 5 shots, 3 of 5 shots, 9 points, and 3 rebounds. The Heat, a wave at the end, 28-15, took away the Celtics directly. The whole game is over. The Heat beat the Celtics at 101-88 in the tiebreaker, won this crucial battle, and successfully advanced to the finals. After watching the game, the Spurs' opponents in the finals were also released. In fact, compared with the Celtics, the Heat, a team with overflowing talent, is obviously more difficult to deal with. No matter who the big three breaks out, the Spurs will be overwhelmed, and LeBron James is not Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant will often be guarded, but LeBron James is very rare. This is the gap between the core. Although Kevin Durant is the scoring leader, but in terms of dominance, he is really no match for LeBron James. Well, our opponent is out, the Miami Heat, currently the hottest team in the league. Tony Parker stood up, his words made people think. What about the hottest team? The championship is our only goal, no matter who is standing in front, we must try our best to win, Manu Ginobili shouted a slogan. Tony Parker then echoed, yes, our only goal is the championship. It doesn't matter who the opponent in front is. The Spurs were very excited by Tony Parker and Manu, but Anzi was standing in the crowd, very calm. To play the Heat in the finals, from a rational analysis, this is a bad opponent that can't be worse. LeBron James is now the well-deserved number 1 in the league, and Dwayne Wade, who has declined slightly, can also be ranked in the top 10 in the league. With these two superstars, the Spurs finals are definitely not that good. Anzi knows that with his ability, LeBron James can only be limited slightly. If the defensive consciousness reaches the top value of 99, maybe he can try to lock LeBron James, but for the Spurs, it can limit or even lock LeBron James. It's not enough, Dwayne Wade in adversity. This sentence is not a joke. But Anzi also knows that for the finals, one must have confidence. What else to play without confidence? The finals are about to begin, and the warm-up for the finals has also begun. First, the league announced the schedule of the finals. The first game of the finals will be held in San Antonio on June 12, 2012. Then, the major media sent their most elite team of reporters to Miami and San Antonio respectively to interview the Spurs and Heat players who will participate in the finals. The ESPN expert group has also started a new and perhaps the last round of predictions as usual. The Spurs have the home field advantage of the finals this time. The first two games were held in San Antonio, the third and fourth games were held in Miami, then the fifth game returned to San Antonio, and the sixth game went to Miami again. If the tiebreak is reached, the tiebreak will be held in San Antonio. This is the home court advantage of the Spurs. This is the result of a better regular season record. And this finals is also the first time the Spurs and Heat have met in the finals. In the history of the team, not counting this time, the Spurs have reached the finals 4 times in 1999, 2003, 2005 and 2007. Year. In the 24 years since the Heat were founded, the Heat entered the finals twice, in 2006 and 2011. The opponents of the two finals were the Mavericks. They won in 2006 and lost in 2011. However, the Heat and the Spurs did not meet. LeBron James and the Spurs have had a history of grudges. In 2007, LeBron James led the team to the finals on his own. LeBron James, who claimed to be the son of heaven, hopes to get him into the league. The first championship after that. But ran into GDP, ran into the Spurs, and the Cavaliers lost 4 games in a row without fighting back. LeBron James was also gifted by Tim Duncan, the future is yours. This legend has been passed down to this day. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to the starting point, to vote, and your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile phone users, please go to read.